Hey everybody, this is Taha Shashtari. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to create a modal box natively in the browser. Nowadays, we have countless of JavaScript libraries for creating a modal box in our apps, but it's better to use the native solution as it's more performant and makes our bundle much smaller. We're gonna start by getting ourselves familiar with the dialog element and its API. Then we're gonna move to work on a real-world use case, which is creating a confirmed dialog for deleting an item. We're going to start by putting something on the page to make sure that when the modal is open, the user can't select anything behind the modal. So let's put something first. To create a modal, we just need to create a dialog element, which is just a simple HTML element. Let's put something in it. Even though I reloaded the page, we can't see the dialog open, and that's because the dialog is closed by default. To open it, we have to call the showModal method on the dialog element. So in JavaScript, let's get first the dialog element and then call the showModal on it. Okay, cool. So now we can see the modal open. Now this is the default styling that comes for this browser. We can easily modify that by targeting the dialog element in our CSS. So for example, let's change the width and height, remove the border, and add some border radius. Okay, so that worked. Another thing we can modify in our CSS is the area behind the modal, which is this. It's called the backdrop, so we can easily do that by targeting the backdrop pseudo element. So for example, let's blur out everything behind the modal. We're going to do that using the backdrop filter CSS. Let's set it to 10 pixels. Okay, so that worked. Now we need a way to close the modal. By default, you can close it by pressing the escape key on our keyboard, but we also need a way to close it by clicking on some button in the modal. We can do that by calling the close method on the dialog element. So first, let's add some button in the modal and add the click event listener to it. Let's give it an ID of close button. So let's get the button. Now let's add the event listener to it. Okay, as I said, it's as easy as calling the close method on the dialog. So let's try that. Okay, so that worked. Now let's move to our next example, which is displaying a confirmed dialog when the user tries to delete some element. So let's add some element on the page and the button for deleting the element. Okay, so after I reloaded the page, you can see that the modal is open by default, but it shouldn't be the case, and we can do that by just removing this line. Okay, so our next step is to open up the modal when the user clicks on the delete button. So first, let's get a reference to the delete button and call the showModal in it. So we no longer need this close button to function this way, so let's replace the close button with the delete button in our JavaScript. It's now a class called a delete item, and when the delete button is clicked, let's show the modal. Okay, let's test this now. Okay, that works. Our next step is to add another button next to the close button, which is called confirm. When the user clicks the confirm, it should close the modal and delete the item. So let's add the button. Okay, so the way we're going to implement this is by using the form element inside of the dialog. So forms and dialogs work together nicely. So if you set the method attribute on the form to dialog, then when any of the sub buttons clicked, then the modal closes automatically. So let's add the form element here and set its method attribute to the dialog. Now when we click on any of the buttons, the dialog would close. So let's try this. Okay, that works for the close button and the confirm button. Cool. Now our next question is, how can we know which button was clicked? So when the dialog is closed by the form sets a value to its return value property. That value is the value of the button that was clicked. We can set the value to the button easily by setting the value attribute. So we're going to use this just as an identifier. So let's call this close and this confirm. Now, the way we know which button was clicked is by listening to the close event on the dialog. So let's listen to that here. So now we need to check the return value on that dialog element, and we can do this in an if statement. Now, if it equals to confirm, which is the same as this, then it should delete the item. Okay, so the way we're going to delete the item is simply by removing the element from the DOM. So we're going to select the item and just call the remove method on it. Okay, so let's test it here. If we click close, then it would close the model without deleting the item. But if we click confirm, then it would close and then delete the item. Okay, that's it. So I hope you learned something new here. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section. Thank you for watching.